Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Several advocacy groups and cannabis dispensary owners rallied at City Hall today, calling on lawmakers to remedy a decision that has thrown the industry into chaos. Under state law, cannabis dispensaries cannot be located within 500 feet of a school. But last week, state regulators said a mistake had been made. They had been measuring wrong all these years, and in fact, more than 150 dispensary locations statewide were too close to schools and out of compliance with the law. Joining me now is one of the store owners directly affected by this. Osbert Orduña is the founder and CEO of the Cannabis Place dispensary in Queens. And I'm also joined by Kalen Castetter. He is the managing director of the Castetter Cannabis Group, which advises cannabis entrepreneurs. Welcome to the program. Thank you both for joining me. And Osbert, before I get into the particulars of your situation, Kalen, maybe I'll have you start with this measurement rule. I mean, the idea is it has to be 500 feet away from a school. They had been measuring it from the front door of the dispensary to the front door of the school, and now they're saying that's actually not the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, so the law allows the regulators to interpret it, it gives them deference to interpret it how they'd like. And so when they originally started these regulations for rulemaking, it was a strict to the property line measurement. Through public comment, they changed that and decided, okay, it has to be on the same street, similar to the way the SLA does measurements, and it's to the nearest used entrance of the school. Because if it's just to the school grounds, the property line, it makes it very difficult to find compliant properties in high density population areas such as Brooklyn and Manhattan.
All right, so Osbert, you get this letter early last week, basically saying your location is no longer compliant with the law. So what was your reaction when you saw it?
It was complete and total shock. We've done everything right. We followed all the rules. Our location has been approved by the OCM for over 2 years. We've had multiple inspections by the OCM. And suddenly, Monday afternoon, 4:45, we get a randomly worded email from the OCM. And when I open that, I see there's an attachment. And in that attachment, the acting director, Felicia Reed, says in her letter that, sorry, we made a mistake. We hope we can, rebuild trust with you in the future. However, you will not be able to continue operating at this location because we have deemed it to now be non-compliant because of the error of interpretation that the OCM had done. And so if we wanted to continue operations, we would have to find a new location, initiate basically a renewal of our application at the new location, and then we would have to continue to go through the process. Now that sounds complicated in of itself, but the reality is it's a super complicated process because even if we were able to find a location, today, for example, we still have to do a 30-day notification to the community board. We then have to be on the schedule for community board hearing. Then we have to submit all of the different paperwork to the Office of Cannabis Management with our leases, et cetera. But there's also the build-out process, so that means pulling permits, architect, engineers, construction, hiring a construction firm to do the work, and then ultimately all of the inspections that need to happen before you can actually open. So previously, that was almost an 18-month process for us. And we spent literally $1 million to build out, to identify, secure, and build out our location.
Right. Well, and Kalen, I was going to say to you, you work with other owners. I mean, people pour their life savings into these stores and spend years finding the right location, getting it up and running, and now they're being told you got to find someplace else.
Yeah, well, not only that, and then they spend the time and money to develop a customer base there, right? And especially in New York with retail, it's about the neighborhood and convenience, right? So they've moved those customers from the illicit market over into the legal marketplace. And if that area can no longer service them with a licensed dispensary, they're going to go right back to the illicit market.
So let's talk about potential fixes for this, because we've heard Governor Hochul talk about this. We've heard from some lawmakers and from regulators from the Office of Cannabis Management. They're basically saying, don't worry, we're going to take care of this, and you shouldn't shut down your business, right? So do you feel like this is going to get fixed and you'll be able to stay?
So here's the thing, Bobby. The trust is broken, right? Because we did everything correctly. We were following all the regulations for the last 2 years, and abruptly out of the blue, this drastic measure and this notice was dropped on us without notice from the OCM. So there is no trust right now. And if anything, there's panic within the industry. But beyond that, what the OCM had identified in their letter, in their second communication to us, as their solution doesn't make any sense. And the reason why is because on Monday they said, hey, we found this error and it's so egregious and so emergent that we need to take immediate action to make sure that the industry as regulators, the OCM as regulators is not breaking the law. Okay, fine, I'll take that at face value. However, 2 days later, they send us a follow-up email, and in that follow-up email they say, we're gonna allow you to submit your application for renewal, and we're just not gonna look at it. We're gonna put it on the shelf, and we're gonna keep it in an under review status, and you can continue to operate. Well, first of all, that violates cannabis law. The very same law on Monday they said that they had to follow. Now, in their second communication, they're proposing to break the law until a legislative fix can happen. And the reason I say break the law is because by telling us that we can continue to operate, that would mean that the farmers, the manufacturers would be able to continue to sell us New York State licensed cannabis products. Cannabis law is very clear. They cannot do that. That's against the law. Second point is, in their letter, what they're all saying is we can continue to operate. That's not true, because the cannabis law is also very clear that you cannot sell New York State licensed cannabis without a license. And if you are selling cannabis, you're doing so illicitly, and thereby not only are you subject to incarceration, the closure of your location, but in addition to that, you forfeit your right to a license in the future. So there is no language in the cannabis law that says that that's permissible. Beyond that, it goes to what happens outside of the regulatory process. Our bank, for example, contacted us and said, hey, we heard what's going on. We're really sorry. The day your license expires at 11:59, we're going to close your bank account. You're going to have to withdraw your funds because under federal banking law, they cannot keep our funds in the bank if we don't have a valid license.
So, I mean, it seems like there is a relatively easy fix that could be had here, right? I mean, the legislature could say, all right, we're gonna change the law. We're gonna grandfather you in and all these other stores that are currently up and running, and they could do that tomorrow, right? They could call a special session and go up to Albany and pass this.
100%.
Well, and that's the big question. They were in Albany, up until mid-June. So why a program bill wasn't introduced and this wasn't done during regular session, that's the big question, because we know that there was a lot of attention paid to this issue during the rulemaking process. They changed the regulations because of public comment. So for years now, this has been known at the office, the governor's office, and amongst the industry. And the devil's gonna be in the details, because grandfathering doesn't really solve the problem that was raised during that public comment period. The measurement that the SLA does, and that method, is the right one. That's the good policy. And so that's going to be the debate when they come back in, whether it's special session or next January and February, about whether it's just about the stores that are already open or fixing this problem in the right way and clarifying in the law that they're going to measure to the nearest entrance.
And Osbert, just in our last minute or so, you guys were at City Hall,
yes,
and you're calling on help from the city, right? Even though
That's
this is state
That's
law.
correct, because over 100 of the 152 businesses are located within the 5 boroughs. So this has a very near and dear impact to New York City and to our neighborhoods and communities. That is, literally thousands of employees that are within the 5 boroughs of New York City. So we're calling on Mayor Adams to take a position and publicly come out in support of the need for us to be included, our issue with the cannabis law to be included as a bullet item if there is a legislative session in October. We need to be a part of that because we contribute $250 million in tax revenue to New York State, and that's 250 million reasons why we should be a bullet point in any budgetary negotiations.
All right, we will see where this goes, but we're going to leave it there for now. Osbert Orduña, Kalen Castetter, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Bobby.
you.
All right, thank you for joining me. It's time now for a break, and coming up, we will turn back to the race for mayor. We'll talk about a published report this week that Andrew Cuomo spoke with President Trump about the mayor's race when I'm joined by 2 top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us, we're back in a minute.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.